Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen and councillors, to this special meeting of the planning application on the 8th of July 2013 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. If I can move on to item 1, apologies for absence.
I've got Councillor Ball and Councillor Behague.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? None. We record none. Item 3, any urgent business. To consider any urgent business brought forward to the committee under Rule 12. I have no urgent business to bring forward. Item 4, applications for the Planning Commission to consider the attached reports. Item 4.1 is the outline application for the erection of up to 100 dwellings, including details of means of access for land north of Guinevere Avenue, Stretton, Burton-upon-Trent, Staffordshire, DE 130FZ. If I can call on the case officer, Michael Brown, to give the council a briefing.
Thank you, Chairman. Afternoon, everyone. As you state, the application relates to land north of Guinevere Avenue in Stretton. The proposal is an outline application for the erection of up to 100 dwellings, including details of means of access. The application site covers 5.07 hectares of agricultural land of grade 3 quality. It's a greenfield site, but it is not within the green belt. It adjoins existing residential estates to the south and east, and to the west there is a dismantled railway line which has now been converted into a public footpath known as the Ginny Trail. To the north there is further agricultural land. This is the site that we saw today, so this is Guinevere Avenue looking towards the site entrance. This is the view from the site entrance looking across the site towards Priory Land. Obviously this photo was taken a few months ago now, so as we saw today it's a lot more greener. This is the view again from the site entrance looking over towards the Ginny Trail, and you can make out the horse sanctuary in the background there. This is the view from Arthur's Court across the site. Arthur's Court being a cul-de-sac just to the south of Guinevere Avenue. These are the gaps within the built form of Priory Land, which would allow views across from this area into the application site. Here we have the indicative site layout. This is an illustrative plan which shows how 100 dwellings could be dispersed across the site. The indicative layout suggests a mix of housing types, including primarily detached, but also semi-detached and terraced dwellings, along with their associated garaging. There is, as you can see, a sustainable urban drainage feature proposed to the southeastern corner of the site, and to the northern and western boundary there is a total of 2 hectares of tree planting proposed. The open space and play areas compose 0.94 hectares of the site. So the main issues are the principle of the development, the design and impact on the character and appearance of the area, impact on residential amenity, highways considerations, flood risk, impact on ecology, and other matters including affordable housing and Section 106 requirements. Turn to the assessment. The site is outside of the development boundary, but given the council can no longer demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, the principle is acceptable. The site would now therefore contribute to the supply of housing within the borough over the next 5 years. The site can accommodate the development and associated open space without unacceptable impact on the character of the area, residential amenity, and highway network, subject obviously to associated off-site highway works. There are no objections from the Environment Agency on Severn Trent in relation to flooding and drainage, and there is no unacceptable harm to protected species with benefits derived from the extensive green infrastructure. No objections from Staffordshire Highways or the Highways Agency in relation to highways impact, and there are no other unacceptable impacts. The recommendation, therefore, is to permit, subject to condition, and the completion of the Section 106 agreement as outlined within the report. Just to provide an update to members, we have, as of Friday, also received an additional 1,000 signature petition objecting to the development.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. At that point, the question of the 5-year housing supply has been raised. I would like at this juncture to call on Anna Miller to give the committee a briefing on the current situation with regard to the 5-year housing supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm just going to give an overview of 5-year land supply, the current housing land requirement that we have recently published as a council, and what that means in terms of decision making and in determining applications, and indeed in the local plan going forwards. To start with, looking at the 5-year land supply, local planning authorities must identify and update annually a supply of specific deliverable sites sufficient to provide 5 years' worth of housing against their housing requirement. Paragraph 47 of the National Planning Policy Framework directs us to do this. Not everything that we approve can automatically go into the 5-year land supply, only a proportion of what we approve, only the number of units that we think will come forward within 5 years. For example, a recent permission in outline will not start contributing to our 5-year land supply straight away. And the reason for this is because you then have to submit a reserve matter application to the local authority to be approved. There will need to be groundworks on site, the provision of initial infrastructure on site, and in the case of a brownfield site, there's potential demolition works or indeed potential decontamination to undergo. So it's not straightforward that a site that we approve goes straight into the 5-year. It has to be phased. It has to be appropriate to the timing of that application. So actual housing completions could therefore take a number of years before we can actually count them in that supply calculation. Paragraph 47 of the National Planning Policy Framework also sets out that local planning authorities should boost significantly the supply of housing. It goes on to state that the local plan must meet the full, objectively assessed needs for housing. A local planning authority's housing land requirement figure used to be determined at the regional level. It was something that was sort of outside of the control of this authority. Our figure for East Staffordshire Borough Council previously was 13,000 dwellings, different plan period 2006 to 2026, which equated to approximately delivering 650 houses on an annual basis. Regional government has been revoked and the regional plan has been revoked. It's now the responsibility of this council to identify through its own evidence the need for housing within the borough, and then to bring that into the local plan and to determine applications in accordance with that figure. Now, we did that last year. We appointed consultants to arrive at that figure for us. For our local plan period 2012 to 2031, they arrived at the figure of approximately 9,000 houses to be delivered within the borough. That's the figure that went into the preferred option local plan last July, and that's the figure that the strategy in the local plan actually sought to meet. Now, unfortunately, about a week before the local plan was published, the first census data release was also published for the 2011 census, which showed that we'd have an increased housing population for the borough into the future. So there are a number of reasons why we've had to look again at the housing requirement figure that we planned for last year, so address recent census publications and releases relating to household and population data. We also have sought to align our housing evidence with our employment aspirations as a council, evidence that wasn't available to us last year. We've also had the opportunity to respond to representations that were made during our preferred option local plan consultation in July. So we've published new evidence on our housing land requirement. We've done that over the last week or so. Our new housing requirement figure has increased from approximately the 9,000 that we had last year to just under 11,700 units. That's over the plan period, that's 2012 to 31. This level of growth equates to an annual housing target of approximately 613 units. So it's higher than the figure that we published last year, but it's still some way under the RSS figure that was previously imposed upon us as a council. So returning to the actual 5-year land supply, which is based upon the housing requirement figure that we have, we published in January a figure of 6.02 years as being our 5-year land requirement, so we were over the 5-year threshold. Now that was based on the 9,000 house figure housing requirement that we had, based on the consultant work that was available to us at the time, and it was the appropriate figure for us to use. But now that we have a new housing requirement figure, we have to redo that calculation, and based on a higher housing requirement, our 5-year land supply has dropped below 5 years to 4.6 years. That's a figure that we've just published in the last week. The only way to climb above the threshold again is to approve applications which can contribute to the supply, providing that they meet with a sound policy basis and that they are sustainable sites. Now, in terms of decision making, planning law requires applications for planning permission are determined in accordance with the development plan, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. Proposed development that accords with an up-to-date local plan should be approved, and proposed developments that do not accord with an up-to-date development plan should be refused, unless you have material considerations which suggest otherwise. Paragraph 49 of the National Planning Policy Framework is clear. Relevant policies for the supply of housing should not be considered up to date if the local planning authority cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply of sites, and that is the position that we now find ourselves in. Regardless of whether the plan is adopted or emerging, without a 5-year land supply, our plans are considered to be out of date, and as such, paragraph 14 of the National Planning Policy Framework is clear. Where the development plan is absent, silent, or relevant policies are out of date, you should grant permission unless there's an adverse impact of doing so which would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, or if specific policies indicate that development should be restricted. So just to summarise what I've just set out there, new housing evidence to support the local plan has increased our housing requirement figure. So it's gone from 9 approximately to just under 11,700 over the plan period of the local plan, that's 2012 to 2031. As such, our 5-year land supply is now calculated to be 4.6 years of supply. The National Planning Policy Framework clearly states that without a 5-year land supply, the development plan is considered to be out of date. Therefore, providing sites are sustainable, we should positively consider approval, providing technical matters are resolved.